Yes, it is.
Good evening, Melrosians the world over. I'm Tom Catalini.
I'm Sam Hammer.
And I'm Tom Shampoo.
And this is Let's Talk Melrose, a show where Melrosians talk to Melrosians about Melrose, and I am giddy with excitement for our special guest.
Oh my God. Cannot wait. Hey, observation real quick, Tom. When you were out last week, I do the intro like that.
Yeah.
I noticed that we do it differently. I do the Melrosians first, then introduce my name. You're so eager to get your name out there. You do the name first.
Yeah, it's all about branding. You really do. So personal branding, the LTMM brand. We want to keep them both strong. So
Yep,
I think
I got you.
But
I'm learning from the Zen master. So that's
to
perfect.
each his own. To each his own. I watched last week's show. It was absolutely excellent. Riveting conversation. Very timely with the news at the school committee meeting.
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
Talk about that a little bit more when we get into the news tonight. But there's more happening, I guess, up front in the banter section. There's something about Tupperware that I don't understand.
Oh
Tupperware, yeah.
No, I have to say, I just had one of the most heartfelt suburban moments of my entire time in Melrose happen Saturday morning. Or was it Sunday? Either way. No, maybe Sunday.
Or was it May?
So what happened was Friday afternoon, I had a Tupperware delivered to my house, and inside were these amazing chocolate balls from Tom Shampoo. And then later that evening, we were making dinner for some of the neighbors, and Tom Catalini had to leave for some other prior engagement. And so we packed him a little Tupperware full of dinner, which was ducking delicious. I hear
According to autocorrect, it was ducking delicious. That's correct.
So we sent that Tupperware down. So then by the time Tom came back up, I think it was Sunday morning to deliver Catalini to deliver my Tupperware, I said, "Can you then take this Tupperware down the hill
to Tom?"
Top Chef. It was the best. It was
a Tupperware little triangle of LTMM love. That's what it was.
Oh my gosh. That was like the suburbs at its best, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, the Tupperware exchange. Yes, very good, very good. And I was impressed. Sam's was glass.
Well,
so that was that was.
I don't trust Sam with glass, so I give her plastic.
Yeah, that was
a good choice.
Wise choice.
That was a good choice. But excellent. And then also we talked about a little bit really quickly that 3 out of 4 LTMMers have taken the mental health first aid responders class.
Yes.
So Jen and I just finished ours on Monday. And Tom said you and Stephanie did the adult version.
We did it last week. That's why I couldn't do the show. So it was Tuesday and Thursday from 5 to 9. Anthony Chu was there, our city's health director. And I got a quick update from him about how this program is going to continue over time. So there's funding to do more instances of it, and there's his staff member Emily is doing some interesting stuff, so I think we're going to have one or both of them on in the future to find out what's happening in the health department. But what did you think of the course, Sam?
I thought it was pretty great. I really didn't know what to expect, and I think it was very grounded, so that and digestible, so the things that we did take kind of stuck with me and have since, and you just are a little bit more aware of not of recognizing potential signs or symptoms, or just being more aware that, maybe not everybody's okay all the time. And it's a good thing to just ask. And
you got a little bit of a tour of some common disorders, but of course it's not about diagnosing and treatment. There's professionals that do that, but it's kind of recognizing those signs and then access to resources. So one thing I wanted to do and share with our viewers, I'm going to put it in the comments here, as a link, if I can make this work correctly. So that link here is to a PDF of resources that are available. So what they did is they put together mental health and wellness resources, local resource list for Melrose Math. So Melrose Health and Human Services Department, crisis services, there's different hotlines there. I learned about this interface referral service that can quickly help, because it can be, let's say you get to the point where you need some assistance. It can it can be trials and tribulations just to find a therapist, find
Right.
somebody who's got availability, get an appointment. So there's an intermediary service I learned about that can help you there. So wanted to share that with the viewers of LTMM so they can get a hold of that for immediate use, and
Yep.
then in reference, and then would encourage as more classes become available to go out and sign up.
Yep, it's pretty great. So one other thing that I don't know if it's on that sheet is that there is a new national hotline similar to 911 for medical emergencies. It's 988, and that's for mental health. It's a mental health hotline. And so it is up and running in Massachusetts. So if you feel like you need it or you're with somebody who needs it, you can call that, and it's a similar dispatch to 911, but for medical, but this is for mental health resources and services. So 988.
Yes, thanks, Sam, for remembering that. And then there's a way to text in to get help and all that. And keep in mind, those resources could be for you. So you might be confronted with somebody and trying to help them, guide them towards some resources. But you can also call yourself to find out, like, I'm trying to help somebody and get some advice and counseling. So there's tons of resources, but it's really nice. I hadn't seen that before, all in one spot. So
yeah,
everybody
great.
should download that, print it out, stick it on the fridge.
Yep.
And there's actually QR codes on the back that will add it to your contacts in your phone. So pretty clever stuff.
Cool. So while I think you both were at my house for something newly called Dude Fest, I was out at Mystery Night Out for the Melrose Ed Foundation. It was an amazing time. Thanks to Koczela, Milios, and Mike McLaughlin for hosting. It was so fun. And the Emersons were playing at Kim LaFontana's house.
Nice.
And I guess they did get a little popover from the Melrose's finest police to tell them that they're awesome and stop by 10. So, so that was really great. That was good. And the Mave Walk was the next day was great. It was rainy, but full of people. Rebecca Mooney was given an award for her service. That's always one of the most heartfelt events in Melrose. So I did that too.
Nice. And I have a quick note. I wanted to just give a shout out to Shane Egan, who's on the Historical Commission with me. Shane runs a website. Many of you maybe see this occasionally, but he posts a number of things on what's called Old Time Melrose. Phenomenal old pictures, old photographs, old stories. He does a great job of connecting quasi-celebrities and famous people from Melrose's past. And so I just want to give him a shout out. We have the website link there, the Facebook link that we can post for him.
Yep.
He did send me a picture earlier today that I thought was impressive. And it's a real estate listing from 1941, house for sale. So quickly, what's your guess for how much a house in 1941 was on the market for?
How many bedrooms?
Don't know how many bedrooms total, but 10 rooms total. I don't know how many just bedrooms, but.
Okay. What part of town or style of house? Like, is it Victorian?
Well, it's a Victorian, but like just generally speaking, how much do you think it would be?
Well, I was going to dial it in. I mean, 1941.
1941. It was actually the week of
in Melrose. I'm going to say it's something. I'm trying to think when my parents bought their house and the prices, but it's going to be like $11,000 or something.
$11,000.
I was going to say 40 to 45
thousand.
Yes.
Okay. Well, here's the house. Boom.
Oh.
Is it multifamily?
Take a look at the address, Mr. Catalini.
What? Is that my house?
That's your house. There we go. Look at that. 4,000.
Oh, what did it go for?
Look at the top. 4,700.
Oh, that's what I meant. I
that's-
added 2 minutes.
That's less than what I paid.
Here's the listing for it, by the way.
Wow.
There you go.
Awesome.
That's wild.
Well,
So-
right
and
close
it's
to the assessment.
12/3/1941.
Wow, that is
Anyway,
so cool.
Shane Egan found a picture of your house for sale, Tom Catalini. I had to show that tonight.
Wow,
It's
that's
great. I'll send you the
yeah,
image of that.
thanks.
Thanks again, Shane
Wow.
Egan, for that.
Oh my gosh, we should take it. Wonder who the neighbors were then.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's appreciated by the time we did our transaction in
Top fan got it right on the money. Look at
2004.
that.
Wow, look at that. Wow, I bet John Hammer was going to guess 4751 like the Price is Right.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's keep going. We have a big guest coming on.
We do.
Yes, I'd say he's average size, but that's okay. If you want to characterize him the way
laughing
you.
at that. How are you laughing at that? All right, should we do the news thing?
Yes, it's time for the news.
Is Steve coming on with us?
Does Steve want to do the news, or you want to be the special guest?
We'll make him special guest.
He was going to wait, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So
guest.
we'll run through the news quickly, and then we'll get our full focus on Steve Koczela, because I think that's really the correct way to proceed. But Dr. K is going on her way, was the breaking news of the last 24 hours. So there's been a lot of turmoil, as we've reported on this show. We lost track of a couple of $1 million. We've had, a few hundred people down at City Hall at a school committee meeting protesting. And I think, I guess we don't know the details. I do know that the school committee went into executive session on Monday night. I thought that was to do with the teacher contracts and trying to move that forward. But I don't know, Sam, you still have kids in the school system. What's the word on the street from that level about the Dr. K situation?
Well, the kids on the street don't know. So I haven't broke that news, but it did go around some text threads this morning. And I think some folks I think are, everybody seemed maybe a little surprised, but some relief I think was out there. I think I heard some folks were concerned that how are we going to be able to find a new superintendent? That, I think part of the job description shouldn't be that you might become a national star. So I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit of mixed reviews, but I think we find ourselves again in the situation around this. I don't know. I don't want to say our school district. Where we're again have lots of hurt people, lots of hurt feelings, lots of things that just are not. We're not moving forward together again. I was on the school committee meeting listening tonight. After I joined, I had heard that school committee chair Jen McAndrew said she was going to step down after her term. This term is up at the end of the year as chair. Step down as chair. And I did have a conversation with a really good friend who, it also is heartbroken from this. The community as a whole is hurting again for lots of different reasons. And one of her reasons, which I share, is that, the folks who run and sit on that school committee are volunteers who I do believe are in it for the right reasons. And sometimes things out of their control happen, or things in their control happen that the community doesn't approve or doesn't agree with. And some of our school committee members do get, the community isn't kind always when they see them in person. I think even as, I know they've chosen to serve and they're doing the work and we're on the show instead. But that doesn't necessarily mean that when they're dropping off their kids at elementary school that they should be poked and prodded. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
So I just, again, everybody's hurting. Again, this seems to be a theme that keeps coming up in this community for some reason. And I don't know.
But, I think a question will be, does this ease that pain? Does it alleviate that hurt? Or does it make it worse for some people? How long does it take to get over this? Like it's a transition, and it's a major transition that we just went through 3 years ago. Right. So I don't have kids in the school anymore. They're out. But my concern is, what is the reaction from the folks like you who have kids in lower grades and have to go through another transition like this with small children?
Well, yes. So at Lincoln, what I've learned is that you can have a leadership change quite often. And yet, if you have the boots on the ground staying the same, the consistency of our teachers is what really has made that school stable
Right.
and
Right.
and thrive against all odds. So I think that that's where my head goes on the superintendent situation. I appreciate that she was here, that she served, and I've had positive experiences with her on a few things. I try not to, and we had her on the show. She seemed lovely. So,
Yep.
But yeah, it's another transition we have to go through now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that said, it was clearly a kind of catastrophic failure of leadership at the end of the day, and it's not a huge surprise that something this dramatic is happening. At the same time, and I think I've said this to some of you in between shows, like, that's not an easy job to fill. It's not that easy to find a good person and get them on board. I think a lot of people in that profession are a little burnt out after having gone through the pandemic. So it feels like maybe a necessary change, but I don't think any of it's going to be easy. And finding a replacement isn't going to be that easy. And the replacement coming in and fixing things, I think there were some fundamental level failures that we should expect better on for sure. But there's going to be some transition.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. We've talked about this a lot, obviously, here in the show, but also in between, as you mentioned, and people have been thinking about it a lot. It's one of those things where you feel like you wouldn't have to worry about this until it happens, and now you have to worry about it. So you learn after it's too late. You know what I mean? Like, next time we'll pay attention to the grants and how we track that funding source. But at the end of the day, the community is the one that suffers from that. The community is the one that pays the price. We're all going to be living through this now.
Right.
Again, some with kids coming up through schools and some without. But it's hard. That's how communities grow, I guess, or get through issues like this.
Yeah, it's similar for the school committee members, right? It's critical there, but they all ran unopposed. So it's a difficult thing to fill and to see through. So hopefully, as you say, same community, we can figure out how to move forward and come together and do that, because I think that's important at the end of the day.
Yep. Yep. So seems like maybe more community conversation should be happening yet again, and to level set or reset a little bit of some dialogue together. But
yes.
Yeah.
After the teacher contract is solved.
Right. First contracts. But the other question too, to your point about open communication, Sam, the thing that you're always talking about is, how long does the process take to fill this role? How are people involved? How is the community involved? What does that process look like? So it'll be an interesting question.
Yeah, I think last time it was pretty extensive and pretty open, and it seemed extensive. You knew who was on the committee, what they were discussing, and there were some things that were not public for not better, in my opinion. But I think I did the list of people who were on there are some of the best educators in our community, and I totally value that they spent their time doing that.
Yeah, and I think they said they're going to start the search either November or December. Like, they're going to start to form the search committee and start the process. She's leaving at the end of the school year, which seems far away, but it's actually going to go quickly.
Yeah.
And it would be a tall order to do that. I think one of the places you could look for potential candidates is at tomorrow night's costume karaoke.
That's right.
At the Knights of Columbus.
Good one. Luckily, we lost one viewer right at that moment.
Like, whoever goes dressed as a school superintendent could be and sings. What song would they sing if you were to dress as a school superintendent?
School's out for summer, Alice Cooper.
Yeah. All right, there you go. Anyway, tomorrow night at the Knights of Columbus, Mel Landon was alerting us to this. Hopefully she'll be down there. She's one of the singers in the Emersons that Sam was just talking about, so it should be a good time.
Yep. And then also I got an email earlier today from Jana Jimenez. She's been on the show before, from the food drive. Yes. So they have a fundraiser coming up, harvest fundraiser for the food drive on Saturday, November 12th at 7 p.m. at Memorial Hall. Tickets are posted there. So please, I think she's got a good response so far, but it's going to be, the link didn't do the thing. Hold on. It's going to be pretty great. Some of Melrose's best food things will be there. So it's for foodies who love food.
Nice.
of Melrose.
That's redundant, but that's perfect.
Speaking of which, that's a perfect segue to our guest for tonight.
Redundancy?
No.
What's happening?
Foodies who love food. Our own Steve Koczela. He might also, I don't know if there's redundancy between the polling and the voting. Maybe that plays in. But anyway, let's get him on the show to talk about the upcoming ballot questions and other matters.
Other goodies. Hey, Steve.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome
Good to be
back. Welcome
More
back.
I am.
Former co-host of LTMM, Steve Koczela, who has dozens and dozens of credentials, but that's probably at the top of the resume, I would think. Welcome back to the show. Also, co-host of his own podcast, The Horse Race, which is where I get all of my political and voting information on these matters. So we thought we'd have him on the show tonight to talk about some of this.
As well as sound bites.
Yes, absolutely. We shamelessly stealing sound bites from The Horse Race from now on.
So, yes, thanks, Steve.
Glad to be here. I prefer founder though, Tom, if that's still available.
OG,
Former
yes.
co-host.
Oh,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's fair.
That's
OG.
Steve, you're in the opening still. So every Tuesday at 8:30, boom, there you are, man.
I know.
You are in it.
My lawyers will be in touch.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on. Election season is upon us. The polls are already open. So the actual election day is Tuesday, November 8th, which is coming up in a few weeks. I'm going to put a link to the massive list of early voting options in Melrose, which started last Saturday from 9 to
Wow.
3. Yeah. So I can't even count every day but Sunday for the next few weeks. You can go down to City Hall and get your ballot and fill out your ballot there. Also, as Tom just held up, he is one of 6,300 Melrosians who applied to have their ballot mailed to them.
Really? That many in Melrose? Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
It's about a third of registered voters requested their ballot by mail.
So I'll tell you why. I did it for the convenience to have it home, and then I can see the actual thing. So it's tough to get information on what's on the ballot, things about the questions, which are always confusing, which I haven't even read yet. I just listened to Steve's podcast, and maybe that's one of the things we could have Steve brief us on. There's 4 questions, right, Steve? Is that?
There are 4, and I got to say, Tom, I do the same thing. Now I get mail ballots significantly so that when there's some office that I've never heard of, then I can text Sam Hammer and ask her who I'm supposed to be voting for, regional technical college supervisors or whatever the thing is. I mean, there's always something, not always, but often there's something that even those of us who try to pay pretty close attention didn't even know was going to be on the ballot.
Well, we were talking about this before the show. There are 5 people from 5 different parties going for auditor. Republican, Democrat, Green Rainbow Party, the Workers' Party, and Libertarian Party are all vying for whatever the auditor is.
I'd love to know what the Libertarian Party's approach to being an auditor would be.
They're just closing it down, shutting it down.
Right.
You don't need this office.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, Tom, there are 4 ballot questions this year. We had 3, which many of you may have taken note of when you got the printed thing that the Secretary of State's office sends around that Tom Shampoo is waving. That, which gives great information on ballot questions and is mailed out every cycle, had 3 ballot questions. But then after it was printed, there was a 4th which was added, which basically asks whether or not you want to keep or repeal the law which enables the state to give driver's licenses to people, to undocumented immigrants, essentially. So because that one came out after the thing was printed and distributed, it's not in the book. The Secretary of State has said that if you get to the polling place and really want to read up on it, that there's going to be printed information at polling places on that one.
So should we go down one at a time and then debate?
Yes,
Do we need to do
definitely.
Talks amongst yourselves.
Question 1 is one that we've been talking about for years now. That's depending on the name that you give it: fair share, millionaire's tax, Prop 80. Some have called it, whatever you want to call it. It's the ballot question, which, if it passes, would add a 4% basically surtax to your state tax level on any income you earn in a given year that's over $1 million. So if you make, $1,010,000, then you'd have $400 extra in tax. Basically, it's just the portion that's over $1 million that would be subject to the tax. It's been around for a while because originally it was a ballot question that had both that issue and basically attaching it to transportation and education funding. The state Supreme Court said you can't do that. There's basically a law that says you can't have unlinked issues in the same ballot question. So the legislature then brought it back to be passed as a constitutional amendment, which is not subject to those same rules. So that's why it feels like it's been around forever, and that's what we're going to be voting on for question 1.
That's why it's a constitutional amendment.
Right. Do you just want to keep going through, or?
Well, I don't know. According to my TV watching habits, this is terrible for farmers.
That's the argument. I mean, the argument basically on the no side is that if you sell your farm, if you sell your small business, if you sell your house, and you're not somebody who makes $1 million a year for your entire career, and you're not like Scrooge McDuck swimming in your swimming pool full of gold coins, but you do have 1 year where you basically cash out of everything you've worked your whole life on, and you go over $1 million, then you're going to be hit with the 4% tax. That's why the ads are kind of going there. And also, of course, because small business owners and farmers are much more sympathetic than, gazillionaire hedge fund owners, of course. So.
And then on the yes side, Steve, aren't they saying, well, look, this is a way we're going to dedicate these funds to transportation and education, and that's bound by a constitutional amendment. And I was thinking about that, listening to your podcast. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. But then I don't know, if I'm the legislature, why wouldn't I just drain funding out of transportation and education and count on this constitutional amendment, and it doesn't necessarily become additive at the end of the day? Like, they're not really. Is that a fair read on it? Are they not like sort of super bound by that?
Yeah, there's basically 2 arguments on the yes side. One is just one of fairness, the whole argument for progressive taxes in general, the idea that people who make more should pay a higher percentage and that people who make less should pay a lower percentage. Massachusetts has tried to implement this in various ways in the past, and it's always failed, at some point. This would do kind of a abridged version of that, where only incomes over $1 million would have a higher tax rate. And then the other one, which you identified, is that we need the money for education and transportation. There's a reason that, the MTA, the Mass Teachers Association, is kind of the #1 group behind question 1. So there certainly are. I think that the questions you ask are valid. I haven't heard anything that really puts those questions to bed. The question certainly says these funds have to be spent on education and transportation, but I don't know how you get around the issue that you just pointed out, Tom, that even if those exact funds are spent on that, some other funds may not be spent on that, so will it actually increase, those specific funding areas? So the argument that we, in our polling, have found people like more is the one on fairness, though, more than what it would be spent on. It's stick it to the rich person and the rich corporation more than it is we really need more funding. Particularly now because there's lots of funding in most places for education and transportation. Not so much here in Melrose, given the way things have gone recently, but with all the ARPA money and all the bailout money and all the COVID relief, money hasn't been the most persuasive issue lately.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
I was gonna say, well, I think when Chapter 70 fund, our next kind of reallocation of Chapter 70 funding comes through Melrose, I think we're gonna have another rude awakening here with our local school budget. So I'm willing to take more money where I can get it. Mm-hmm. And yes, we having a progressive tax structure just makes sense for the massive income inequality that we already have here, to help support some of the services that we all need to rely on, regardless of income, but especially those who are of low income. So, so I did put in more propaganda on why you should vote yes.
We all saw that coming too, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm a positive person, so
I know.
a yes vote you're always going to get from me.
Well, maybe before we move on, it might be helpful, Steve, if you want to update us. I know you did some recent polling on the questions.
Oh,
It
yeah.
would be nice to know kind of how question 1 is polling.
Yeah, polling, we have done it recently. Suffolk University has done polling. We've done it both on question 1 and on question 4, which we'll obviously get to in a little while. Question 1 is, we found it with a pretty significant lead, which was notable because for the beginning part of the year, we saw it start up around 70%, and then it had actually gone down to like the mid 50s in terms of the percent who said that they were going to vote yes. Which sometimes in ballot question history means that it's going to tank, it's going to go down kind of at the last minute. We've seen that happen on lots of ballot questions lately, but both our poll and Suffolk University showed a modest recovery for the yes side, and it now leads by a pretty decent margin. Unfortunately, I can't seem to click on my slides at the moment, but it's something like something in the high 50s to the low 30s or so, which was similar in terms of the margin to what Suffolk University showed.
Awesome.
That's significant. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a lock because what often happens on ballot questions is that if you're undecided, you tend to vote no, because if you don't know if you want that thing to happen, then a no vote's a way to have it not happen. If you're unsure about like what some obscure detail, which is what no campaigns try to make you unsure about farms and small businesses, for instance, then a no vote's easier than a yes vote.
Yeah.
And then you also often have some people switch from no to yes. So it's not like a slam dunk, but it's certainly more comfortable than seeing it slipping, which is kind of what we had been seeing until now.
Awesome.
Steve, I have a quick question for you, just in general on questions like the ones we see here, the 4 questions. Do you track in your polling, if a question is clear or confusing to people? I wonder if people find some of these questions confusing.
Yeah.
What happens with it? For example, question 2, the dental regulations, the dental insurance regulations, is that more confusing to people than other questions? Or
we do sometimes, particularly if there's ambiguity in people's minds about what a yes versus a no would even do, which side is which, for instance.
Like Brexit?
That kind of thing.
What do you mean?
And we'll ask a follow-up question where it's like, so you're saying you support this thing, like, increasing taxes, or do you oppose it? And usually people are pretty good on it. We found some level of confusion in the past on repeal referendums, particularly, which question 4 is. The transgender accommodations bill was the last one of these that we did. And there was some confusion, but most people, and certainly enough people, got it, to, end up where we did.
Okay.
I mean, I was already relating to what you said about sort of defaulting no and being easily swayed towards no, because first of all, I don't know how this question got in front of me. Like, we have a whole process, and I got a bunch of people that are supposed to be doing this at the State House. Like, why am I, like, why is it passed back to my desk? And then when when you asked that question, I'm looking at my ballot, like, I'm not sure I would even read this. Like, I'm going to, listen to Steve and get a sense of this and make a decision, but I don't think I would read the, 600 or 800 words here of sort of super formal, convoluted language.
And fair share is even like a more pertinent issue to people than, dental insurance ratios, and which is what question 2 is about.
Let's get into question 2, the dental insurance ratios.
Well, that's a good example of the kinds of questions we've seen lately, and the kinds of questions that some people, I think, are asking at this point. Like, is this why we're doing this? Like, is this what ballot questions are supposed to be for?
Yeah.
Because in the abstract, the idea that people and voters should have like a say in some things, and you should be able to do what the legislature won't, is sort of a nice one. But then when you see how it's implemented and you see the impacts where, a rich guy puts his casino land taking on the ballot a couple of years ago, and the Mass Dental Association puts something about insurance ratios on, is that what it's for? But that's for another day. Today, question 2 is about dental insurance ratios. And basically what it would do if it's passed is it would do to dental insurance what's been done to health insurance, where insurers would have to spend a certain portion of the premiums that they take in, 83% in this case, on on claims rather than on profit or on bonuses or on administrative overhead or anything like that. And that loss ratio basically doesn't exist for dental providers right now like it does for health insurance companies.
Yeah, so I wasn't really sure what it was about until I got an email from my dentist, actually, advocating for a yes vote. And it does make sense to me why we should be regulating this a little bit more. And I guess that's also why we have it on our desk, Tom, is because it wasn't regulated before.
Okay, but why is it 83%? And you listen to Steve's podcast; they have the pro and con people on, and sometimes they're asking like very straightforward questions, and it's not super compelling. Like, well, how did you pick 83%? And the guy goes like, we don't know. We got to pick a percentage, and the point is, we're gonna find out if that's a good idea or a bad idea. But you're gonna find out after you've kind of made. So it does seem a little, not reckless, but inelegant. Approach to this.
I got a letter from my health insurance premium provider rather about my premiums, and they said they didn't spend I think it was 88% or 85%, whatever they had to spend. They didn't meet that, and so they're giving refunds back to people that overpaid for the year. So,
yeah, Tom, you're right though. I mean that is sort of the basics of what they said. And one of the things the ballot question would also do is basically implement reporting requirements that don't exist at the moment. So that's part of why we don't know if 83% is a great idea, because we don't exactly know what the ratios are right now. Yeah. So very interesting question. Definitely would be better dealt with by people studying this full time and, at the legislative level, but that's, we are where we are.
Well, rather than have well-educated people focus and analyze it, what do the polls say?
Question 2 and 3, there's no polling on, or at least no
non-campaign
polling. So I have absolutely no idea how those
oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
Or at least I haven't seen it. Someone's going to correct me on this. If somebody wants to be super smart and look at the Suffolk University poll and see if questions 2 and 3 and reply in the comments, then you can make me look stupid on the air.
Our top fans are on it.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, talk about super studious, deep thinkers. They're going to do that, and they're going to delay slightly the plans for the planning session for Son of Dude Fest in 2023, and put some cycles against this one, I think.
Oh, God.
All right, so I think we should move on to question 3.
Yeah.
Right. Question 3, another super arcane one that there's really not an obvious, right. I'm liberal or I'm conservative or I think this or that, so therefore I'm going to vote this certain way. This one basically changes the number of liquor licenses that you're allowed to have, that like one owner is allowed to have or are allowed to be under common ownership. And it expands that number for basically beer and wine licenses from 9 up to 18 over the next number of years. So somewhat ironically, it was actually proposed by package stores. This, ballot question was proposed by people who tend to have only 1 or 2, and it would allow groups that have 8 or 9 already to have even more than that. So the reasons for that are kind of interesting, and basically are that they're trying to keep the larger retailers from going even further, from going to the legislature and saying, hey, we want unlimited, or we want many, many times that number, so that then every Cumberland Farms in Massachusetts can start to sell beer and wine. So this was them trying to provide a more reasonable alternative and to avoid a more aggressive ballot question that larger retailers might have wanted to put forward.
So, Steve, I'm sorry for my ignorance on this. When you say a license, does that mean a store? So if I have 9 stores, I can't have 10 until this law passes? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Exactly. Right. And then the other thing it would do is it would reduce the number of hard liquor license or establishments basically from 9 to 7 under common ownership. And it changes a few other little things, like you can't sell, or codifies a couple other things, like you can't sell alcohol through the auto checkout, and some little things like that. But the main things are the number of licenses that one retailer can have.
And what's the downside, I guess, of that? Just bigger stores becoming bigger still?
Yeah, I mean, the downside
Yeah.
for package stores of, sort of runaway license issuing is that they lose out, so if you like your package store experience, then you might not want there to be more. But
Yeah.
even if it's struck down, there's nothing to say the legislature wouldn't come back and, expand that number themselves. One other piece of the strategy that the package stores may be doing is that there's a law that says once a ballot question is passed, you can't have a substantially similar question for a period of 6 years. We don't exactly know, because as far as I understand it, nobody's ever challenged exactly what that means. Like what's similar, how similar does it actually have to be? But that's maybe part of the thinking, is they're trying to buy themselves some more time.
Yeah, I think I lean on supporting this one. I'm not a big fan of all beer, wine, and liquor going to Walmart and everything being consolidated all the time. And it was interesting when your first podcast on this, there was literally no opposition.
Yeah.
And then I think, what was it, Total Wine? You said it came
Yeah.
out now, because I just saw the ad the other day that somebody was against this.
Yeah, Total Wine is now on the no side and using sort of an ironic argument that it's going to hurt family-owned businesses, which technically they are, but they have something like 200, locations all across the country. So I don't know. This is another one though, where it's like, which side are you arguing for if you want to support the package stores? Which side are you against? Do you believe the package stores strategy, or if you want to save package stores, do you want to keep the limits where they are? It's one of those things where, again, I wish that there were, maybe full-time legislators, staff, I don't know, experts, people dealing with this, but instead it's on us on this show to figure out what we should do about it.
Who am I helping if I vote yes?
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, you're helping if you want to be able to go to BJ's and have a higher chance of being able to buy like your handle of Skull, then then you should vote yes.
Well,
I mean, it's like the last ad I see before going to vote is usually the one that sways. So I listen to the farmer guy comes on and I go, that sounds right.
He knows
and
what we're talking about.
Then the education person comes on and I go, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
none of this stuff should be on my desk.
Right. They flood you with ads at the last minute because that's exactly how people often make up their minds. So they pack all their spending right in the last couple of weeks for that exact reason.
Yeah, I beat them because I have my ballot at home, so I am going to be very thoughtful about this and choose. I'm going to vote at a time of my choosing.
Mm-hmm. And question 4, you said, is a repeal.
Yeah, question 4, if it passes, so a yes vote would uphold the law that's already passed that basically allows undocumented immigrants in Massachusetts to get driver's licenses with certain documentation and so forth. And a no vote would mean that you do not approve of it. So if more people vote no than yes, then the law would be repealed. So again, if you're supportive of the original law, then vote yes. If you're against the original law, then vote no.
Yeah.
Woo!
Thank you. Wow, this is quite a.
Was there polling on number 4?
Yes, number 4, we do have polling on, and that one both we did and Suffolk University did, and that one the lead is much narrower. It's sort of in the teens or so, and the polling is closer to 50% than for question 1. So that one too, I think, could potentially go either way. But that one is the other one that we've seen some amount of polling on. It's a bit easier to understand, a bit easier to poll. Whereas, and people, want to know what other people think. Where question 2 and 3, I think, if us on the show who pay a lot of attention are kind of struggling to figure out, what do I do if I want to support this group or that group? Like, it's just, it's tough to, really get people fired up about it.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean, do you have any other questions about it though? About question 4? Because I was, I'm a yes, obviously, on question 4. And I think the reasons to vote no were just ridiculous, that it will incentivize more immigration, and it's beyond logical. I found all these no reasons. And also I'm going to post a story in here about one young woman who her op-ed on why a yes vote matters for her, that I found pretty compelling. So I'll put that in the chat.
All right.
So I listened to Steve's podcast on this question today.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it is interesting. They just straight up ask the obvious objective questions to each side. And the answers do kind of reveal themselves throughout that process, what you're talking about, Sam. So it's really, so if anybody wants to dig deeper, I would, Steve, you and the team did a nice job getting the appropriate representatives from a yes and no side on each of the questions. And this is like a 6 or 8 minute segment on the podcast. This isn't heavy lifting if you're interested to listen to this stuff, but it's really well done. And I think, it seems to me you're trying to be as objective as you can. And it is interesting to listen to reps from each side kind of represent the case. And maybe it's all in the bias is all in the listener, but some seem to reveal themselves more clearly to me than others.
Yeah, definitely go listen. I agree with that.
Doing a link again. Yep.
Steve, on election night coming up 2 weeks from tonight, I imagine at least that you've got, like, rather than a man cave, you have like a war room in your basement of like polling central, and you're watching all these things going around. What's happening where? What do you do on election night? Do you
and in that basement, is there a poll? maybe there's some pole dancing.
There's no pole dancing.
There's no pole dancing.
I'm aware of, anyway.
Oh man!
This particular election night will be on WBUR, so if anybody wants to tune in, that's where I'll be. But I do have many screens open at a time. There's such good real-time election reporting now from lots of different sources. Some like national media or state media, and some just. Each election cycle, there's a couple people or groups that just pop up and are doing something really innovative and cool. Rivera Consulting did something very, very cool in the mayor's race, with, stringers basically reporting vote totals way before the AP. So maybe there'll be something like that too.
Yeah. Are you going to be reporting on the national results as well? Or
I think we're probably going to do the state.
Okay.
But I mean, we on Let's Talk Melrose did the Melrose state rep election, right? Or
Yep.
And had the first exclusive call on that way before the Associated Press. And I think we deserve that on the back.
That's right.
I totally forgot we did that. We had so much energy in the early days.
Research, spreadsheets, like
Right.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Well, one pro tip for election night, especially, but if throughout the day, is to go to Twitter and turn on notifications for Steve's account, and you get some real-time coverage.
Yeah.
And then I do my best to try not to DM him to say, "Can you just? Where's the update? Where is it?" Because he is very, very into what's happening real time, diligently trying to report out all the news for all of us sitting at home, just waiting
For experts like Steve to tell us.
Yes. So thank you for your service again.
It's my pleasure.
Is it?
It is. That's why I do it still after 12 years.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Well, we'll look forward to the results.
All right, sounds good.
All right, there we
Thank
go.
you
I think
so
that's a
much.
wrap. And
Yeah.
Steve, would love to have you on, even when there's not an election or some complicated
right.
questions to answer. So
We should have a show. He always says that he doesn't know anything that's going on, and I said that's why you're perfect. But we really should have.
He's plugged into everything. Don't let him kid you for a second. The real show I want to do is 3 cameras on Steve 24/7. Let me edit that up to something that's inspirational and moving for the whole country, because that would, I think, a lot would be revealed. A day in the life of Steve Koczela.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
Day in the life in
best
2
way.
minutes. 2 minutes of Steve Koczela.
Right.
Oh, while you're here, do you have any comments on anything we talked about at the top of the show?
I mean, I identified with what you said, Sam, that it's like here we are again in a way, it just feels like never ending in some ways. The Lincoln School specifically, just because I've lost track of how many principals just in the years my kids have been going there. And now, to be changing superintendents, it just gets tiring. You want stability, you want direction. I want stability, I want direction. Our kids only have one chance at it, and it's just sort of a bummer to feel like every couple of years we're kind of back on the treadmill again.
Yep.
As Lincoln still had a rapid turnover of principals, so now my kids are older than your kids. My son's graduating college this December, and he had, I think, 7 principals at the Lincoln School during his stint.
Wow, geez.
We've had, from our time, Steve, we've had 3. The first, but the first one was her first year, and then also her last. So I think this one that we have right now is pretty dang great. So I hope we keep her. I hope we keep her for a while. So, yeah. But it is, again, it's a testament to the staff in that building for keeping that school moving. And they do put on a brave face. Somebody said tonight at the school committee meeting, and they deserve everything we could possibly give them. So,
yeah, of course. All right.
It's a tough business. Okay, so there we go. I think that's a wrap. We hate to say goodbye to the LTMM community and to Mr. Koczela, but the time has come to say toodaloo.
Toodaloo.
Wow.
And we will see you around town.
Yeah.